Standby like Q's 2 through 33, sound 1A through 7. On deck, standby Q actors. Electrics, kill the blue run lights, please. Like Q 2 and sound 1A, go.
From Arizona Theater Company, this is Hang in Focus with your host, Sean Daniels.
As someone that grew up in Arizona, it's a great way for us to share the work that we do worldwide.
And featuring co-host Janelle Bragg.
That is our responsibility, is to reflect what is going on in the world.
Streaming live from the State Theater of Arizona.
So let's do it. Let's really use this moment to re-envision ourselves.
Welcome to Hang in Focus, live with Sean Daniels.
This is the new Arizona Theater Company. I'm just glad that you're here.
On today's show, we reflect on RomeroFest.
The first thing I remember about my daughter was that she had a pen in her hand.
The first I read from her was when she was in high school.
It's hard to mention one. I just love them all.
The one I can really remember, though, is she wrote a play when she went to college, and that was the one that sticks out in my mind as being her first kind of really legitimate work.
She has asked me to visit a lot of theaters throughout the country, so I've seen a lot of her plays.
I remember that was the first time I said, oh, my sister's a playwright. Body
of Hollywood was one of my favorites in the very beginning, and since then there have been so many wonderful ones. And each time I leave, I think that's my favorite, so they're all very special to me.
We're the product of my mom encouraging reading, education, creativity all of the time. So it just was it became the way we were raised.
If we were worried about school, they said, well, the most important thing is that you maintain your creativity.
Elaine was my caregiver when I was small, so she took the best care of me. She would always lay the background and give people motivation when she would explain things to me so I could really understand what was going on. She was always a true character developer in her mind about what was happening.
Whenever I watch a play, it's interesting how much of our family lore has woven its way into the plays, and it's just amazing. I can see that, oh, hey, I know where that came from. And it really speaks to how rich our childhood was and how much Elaine is able to articulate that in a play.
What is one word that describes your beautiful Elaine?
I'm going to say perseverance.
You beat me with the same word. I'll be up on something else, though.
You're going to come up with a new one, Mark.
I'm going to use the word dynamic. I think my sister's a powerhouse.
Very poetic.
I'm going to say insightful, because it takes a depth of understanding of personalities and people to be able to capture them in a play. And I think she's really insightful as to people's motivation, what drives them.
Courageous.
My word is the most blessed man in the world.
This was new when she decided to be a playwright. It's been an exciting life for us too.
I come from a beautiful family. I love these people. I wouldn't be who I am today without my family. My brother Kevin Romero, my brother Stephen Romero, that's
Hello.
my big brother Mark. My parents George and Irene Romero, and we're hoping. I feel like my family, if you actually ask each of my brothers, you will find out, for one, they all write. They all do something creative. My family, and you might say, oh, that brother does this, so therefore, no, don't make any conclusions about this family. They all have so many skills and gifts.
I am a ceramic artist. I have another career which I've moved on from, but this is my latest one, my latest endeavor, and I'm very, have a little pottery studio, and I've been doing a lot of really interesting work lately. So.
I was the fire station chef for my entire 34-year career. So the guys would come in the morning and give me the money for the ingredients, and I'd go cook for them. That was part of my duties there. I regrettably retired from the fire department as I got a little too old to fight fire. I'm still working as a paramedic. Kevin's the brains.
I have lots of fun artistic pursuits. I love stained glass. I also do pottery, but mostly just painting them. I love to paint pottery. That's my thing. I like coming up with some little clever theory and turning it into art. I do enjoy writing. In fact, I wrote a book about my dog, Champ, called the Champ Memoirs.
What type of environment did you want to create for them, for your home?
I think the best environment was their mom. She's just the greatest woman in the world. And she was the one who took care of them and guided them and taught them to read. She's just been the most terrific woman in the world. And they're just reflecting her creativity.
I think that was the secret, is that we really enjoyed our family, each one. And we just tried to keep the house as comfortable as possible, and everybody had a voice. That was one of our secrets, is we always ate together and we always shared, and everyone shared. And it wasn't so one-sided.
How wonderful to have all those beautiful faces.
I feel like that's the like dream of every artist, right? Is to at least have your work acknowledged and remembered, and your family to get some credit for everything you put them through. To be able to,
That's so true. It's so good to have you back, Sean, this week.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. So there's going to be a lot of love for Elaine today, right? In terms of what it is, as we this is the last weekend of RomeroFest. Several events still going on, right? But this is the last weekend of it. But I wanted to give a shout out to you, Chanel, who has been our internal producer in terms of making it happen. And, these type of festivals don't happen unless there is somebody internally who is driving, who is organizing, who is putting out fires, who is starting the right fires when they need to be happening to move things along. You really made this happen in terms of what it is. And so thank you for that. And I also want to give a shout out to Will Rogers, who is our video editor. And if you watch Halstead or you watched Ponzi and you thought like, oh my God, this looks great, or the video looks great, or there's something keeping my attention in addition to the wonderful language, that is all Will on top of it. So we're going to love Elaine all day long, but I definitely want to give a shout out to Will for all his work, and for you, Chanel, because this would not be the success that it was without you doing that. And I just think it's so part of who you are that like you self-sacrifice to lift other people up and to make sure people that haven't always gotten the dues that they deserve, make sure that they get them, and they get them loudly, and they get it with class, and that they get it, in a very, in a way that is respectful and also exciting in terms of spreading it. So thank you for everything that you did for us, and thank you for everything that you did for Elaine going through this.
Thank you. Well, it is a love fest indeed. I definitely would not have been able to do it without the fantastic team here at Arizona Theater Company from our marketing team. Just a quick shout out to Biddy Rosenberg, who was responsible for putting together the RomeroFest website and being able to update it every single time we had updates to really uplift our friends that are supporting this work and being a part of the festival. And Elaine herself has been wonderful in like connecting with all the different theaters. And I want the people to know, Elaine not only was having her work done in all these places, but she was actually physically in a lot of the rehearsal spaces, either lending her support as a playwright, rewriting some of the options. So as much as it was a love fest for her and uplifting her and her work that she has completed, she actually worked a great deal during this festival. And so I want to go ahead and bring on Elaine for a moment. Huzzah, Elaine!
I gotta thank you, Chanel and Will and Penny and everybody and Sean and my whole Arizona Theater Company family. Just thank everybody.
Oh my goodness. So when we first were putting this together, and Sean had this amazing idea, like let's uplift our Playwright-in-Residence. Like, how is it possible that in the 20 plus years that you've been here that we haven't even produced one of your works? So not only were we able during the festival to do 2 different titles of yours, but we've been able to give a platform to lots of different titles around the country. So I just want you to kind of weigh in on what has it been like for you over the last month?
This is something I never dreamed of in my lifetime, that people would come together and do my work. And I have learned more about myself in the last couple of weeks, about my writing, about my soul, about my beautiful family that you just got to see. I have learned so much. And there's just, I will never forget the moment of this. And as Brad said to me, this is a beautiful moment, live the moment. He really, if you saw Halstead, he's my sage of 4th Avenue. But really, honestly, it's just, many people work hard. And so I don't take for granted that, oh, I deserve this or whatever. I am just super grateful. And the companies that have come forward on very little notice, actually, in Mexico, the US, my friend in Mexico is still translating a brand new play so he can present it next week. Just all the beauty of that. And to know that you're loved when you're still here is a gorgeous thing. And it's also reminded me to tell people that I love them and that I appreciate their presence in my life and what they've done for me as an artist, and that I also see their art. I think it's really helped me see that I want to mirror the love that's been given to me back to others.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. And thank you so much for creating such beautiful work. It's funny with some of my interactions with different people that are part of the festival. They've been like, yeah, I just perused 7 different Elaine plays. And I'm like, and you haven't scratched the surface of the amount of works that you have. I mean, at this point, how many plays have you written?
Somewhere upwards of 90, and some of those are the little short plays, but I have a lot of full-length works as you're learning because they're not all in the festival. It's kind of crazy. But it's funny because in watching the festival, I thought, why didn't I quit? Because a lot of stuff didn't get produced, or it was commissioned and they never did it, or there was always a reason. And I thought, well, I'm glad I didn't, because we wouldn't be here. And I'm glad that I wasn't paying attention to how many people were saying no, because my soul was saying yes to the words and yes to the characters.
Well, before we bring on the rest of our guests, I think we should show anyone that has missed the Romero Fest. You still have some offerings you can still check out, but let's do a little bit of a recap of what the festival has been thus far. So everybody go ahead and turn off your cameras.
I think it's so wonderful when you have an opportunity to see the threads that make up a playwright's work, a body of work. And so here, not only do you have the Border Play trilogy, but you're able to dip into the other worlds that Elaine has woven. And there are comedies, and there's dramas, and there's histories. I mean, it's all in there.
I find Elaine's, sort of work ethic and capacity to move between subjects and styles and approaches really remarkable.
You take her whole body of work into consideration, you get to step back and say, this is an alternate version of what United States culture is, from the perspective of the Latinx community, and in a way that really makes it necessary for us to reinvestigate how we communicate that culture.
I remember vividly how imaginative of the whole play, like the setting, the stage direction, it doesn't really make sense, but then it does make sense at the end. How vicious the dialogue can be, and also how quick she works, because Elaine, she is fast.
I was mesmerized by the world that Elaine creates, the worlds, and just being able to give voice to that. She talks about such serious issues, and she doesn't shy away from those in TYA. There's no reason to, right?
Elaine, who is one of the hardest working playwrights, she never stops working. She is tenacious. She has made a living at playwriting when other people have just stopped.
I am just blown away by the breadth of her reach, her mental reach and emotional reach. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Like Peter Brook says, true artists are really listening to their tribe, and then they create something before the need arises for their community.
I'm a formerly undocumented immigrant. I am a former DACA recipient, and so many of her themes are just generating and germinating and just living in myself. And so reading her play all the way to the end, there was a triumphant scream, and for people who look like me and for people like me. So that to me is the big win. And
she actually updates the narrative of Latinx theater. It's an alternative narrative, but it's also updating what Latinx theater is and can be. And through the breadth of her work, especially through this idea of the transformational supernatural, she shows the American public what Latinx theater can be and ought to be and is, in ways that are very exciting and I think essential for American theater.
Her writing is just so smart, just being able to sit with the script before I met any of the other actors or before we did a read through. I could so clearly hear them and I could so clearly see them.
I've always lived in the borderland area, near Yuma, but I always lived in San Luis Rio, Colorado, or in Nogales, Sonora, in Arizona. And I don't know, particularly for Mother of Exiles, I felt like she was very, very like she was able to very vividly portray well, the world that we're in.
Nuance.
Paradox.
Enlightening.
Magical.
Provocative.
Revolutionary.
Pride.
Human.
Exemplary.
Intense.
Mandate.
Everything.
Authentic.
Unapologetic.
Provocative.
Now. Perception.
Brutal. Raw. Moving.
What a vocabulary that exists to talk about one playwright, and we're only talking about 5 titles. Imagine her breadth of work.
So my hope is just get this work out there.
Just beautiful.
I'm gonna weep at every section that we do because it's just great to be able to finally honor somebody, you know, who has been in Tucson, who has been in Arizona working and writing and with this organization for decades. You know, we just don't get these opportunities. We don't give ourselves these opportunities often enough.
For sure. Well, I think without any further ado, we're going to bring on some of those faces that are going to look a little bit familiar to you. So we can have our friends that were on our scholarly panel that kicked off the entire RomeroFest event on the 1st. So come on in, and Elaine, please join. And just a gentle reminder, we have David Crespi in the house. Go ahead and wave your hand at the people. We have Ann Garcia Romero. And we have Jimmy Noriega. Thank you so much for being a part of our wrap-up. So what better way than you guys all kicked off the event at the very beginning, and what better way to close the festival by inviting you to come back. And so one of the questions I had is, number one, how was engaging in the scholarly panel with your colleagues about Elaine's work?
I'll jump in. It was extraordinary. I've been writing about Elaine's work for a number of years now. And to talk with David and Jimmy and Tanya Palmer about the breadth of Elaine's work was a huge reminder of the amazing contribution that she has made and continues to make to the American theater. I will admit that I have not read yet all 90 plays. I would love to. But knowing the breadth of that, I mean, it's really, in terms of Latinx theater, I mean, she's really a singular voice in terms of her perseverance, her talent, and the scope of her work. And so just talking to my colleagues was a great reminder of that. And it was amazing.
Wonderful. And David, so this has been like the first time you've seen probably Elaine's work being presented like in this way. What was it like for you to see all the different titles that are being chosen and like how the festival was put together? What were your immediate thoughts on it?
Number one, deeply and well-deserved, because she has just, I've been in the trenches with Elaine for years and years as a fellow playwright. And so I've watched someone who has not had the safety net of an academic roost for years, you know, be acknowledged and kept going and going. And I actually have not written a whole lot about Elaine. I just wrote recently about her in a volume for Cambridge. And the reason I wrote about her was not just as a Latinx playwright, but as one of the hardest working playwrights in America. Like, she just was my model of someone who has survived a rather unforgiving field. I mean, most people laugh about anyone trying to make a living at playwriting. Well, Elaine has done it, and she's done it beautifully. And I really thought that all these productions, and the two that I saw, were so beautifully produced and really kind of brought out nuances of Elaine's work. I actually think, you know, I'm going to be diving back in to do some more work on Elaine, because I really find that this is an incredible resource for those of us who haven't been able to attend all of her things. So I'm really thrilled about this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a few of these productions while they're still available, because I understand a few are still available via Zoom. So I'm very excited for you. I'm so proud to be your friend and colleague, and so honored to be on this panel with such talented folks as well. But so proud of you. It just is very exciting.
Thank you for that. Now, Jimmy, you had a couple of different festival offerings that were put in, 4 to be exact. So you got to help us drive up that number of how many of different pieces of Elaine's were actually produced. Can you talk to us about the selections that you chose?
Yeah, I was so excited to be able to participate in RomeroFest with my group, Teatro Travieso Troublemaker Theater. And, I have known Elaine for years, and I've worked with Elaine, and I've always dreamed of directing Elaine's plays. And I never imagined that the first ones would be short plays. And I'm so glad that they were, because they were 4 very distinct worlds. And I'm the ability of the festival to do what it did in this past month to me is phenomenal. I worked with 12 actors in 9 different cities in 2 countries to do these 4 shows: Baby Food, Swastika, A Still Small Voice, and Day of Our Dead. And it was a gift, I think, that Elaine gave us, because we've been in a year without doing any theater, without collaborating, not only because of the distance, but the pandemic, the financial resources, everything that has happened with COVID. And at this moment to say, want to do 4 new shows, want to work together, everybody jumped immediately and said yes. And when we read them and discussed them as a company, we were drawn to these 4. And in conversation with Elaine, we realized that 2 of them had not been produced before. Some of them stretched back to Elaine's earliest writings. Swastika is a more recent piece. So to be able to actually work physically, right, on 4 plays that kind of were different eras of Elaine's creative trajectory was just phenomenal, and I am grateful that we were a part of this. I only want to mention one right now. I know I can't talk too much about all 4, but Swastika, based on the true stories, the events of a Latinx youth who commits a hate crime in a chapel in Evanston, Illinois, working on that piece with Mexican actress Cristina Michaus to create that dialogue between the mother and the son, brought us to tears at every rehearsal. And to know that Elaine's words not only were able to do that to us virtually, but then the responses that we got to that piece. We had over 1,200 views to our offerings, but that one was the one that we received the most feedback to, because it just spoke to our times. What does it mean to hate yourself for who you are because you live in a country that has taught you to hate yourself, or where you have to prove that the only way you belong here is by turning your back on your community? And I thought that was so powerful. So again, thank you, Elaine, for that opportunity, for those gift of those plays. And I look forward to being able to direct more of your work in the future, because it truly is just inspiring to do that, but also to bring a company together to work on your vision of what U.S. theater should be.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to thank you. And he chose a piece from my 20s, and that little 20-something Elaine wants to thank you for being the first producer of A Still Small Voice, because she rewrote that like 90 times and sent it to every theater she could think of, and it never got done. So thank you.
So, I'm curious what all of your thoughts are. So many of our fellow artistic directors and producers are getting to know Elaine's work. I think they've known about her, but, even I had, I've read tons and tons of them, and I feel like I know so much more. So many of our fellow artistic directors are getting to know more of her work and to understand how it could fit in with their communities. What's your opinion why other theaters have to be doing her work? How would you phrase it to them, those that are watching? What are the reasons why they should drop whatever they're doing and produce this work right away?
That's a great question, Sean. I'll jump in. I think Elaine Romero's plays need to be done right away, because she updates the narrative of the Latinx experience in this country. She, as a Latina playwright, has a breadth of work that's really, in many ways, inspired by her training with Maria Irene Fornes, who encouraged her students to follow their artistic impulses and visions regardless of the subject matter. And Elaine has an incredibly broad tapestry. I think also, too, aesthetically, Elaine brings a really unique aesthetic voice to Latinx theater, which is at times experimental, poetic, at times collage-like. Notre Dame did a reading of Curanderas last evening, and it was great to revisit that play. And the young artists who worked on that play were so inspired. And I have to say, Elaine graciously popped into our post-play discussion and surprised the cast, and they were overjoyed to meet her. And that's just one example of her generosity as a theater artist. But that play in particular looks at the role of healers and the idea that we need to embrace our identity as healers in the world. And in that play, there's a line that talks about having the gift, el don. And I told Elaine this yesterday, that Elaine has the gift of playwriting. She has the gift of telling our stories in ways that are varied and poetic and beautiful, and her voice needs to be shared broadly now.
I just want to put out there how great Elaine is by receiving all these compliments right now. You're handling it in stride, and I just know your heart, and so I know that it's so big, and you just want to hug every single person that is on this screen and beyond. This next question is for you, Elaine. And you did touch on it just a little bit, but I want to know if you'd elaborate a little bit deeper. And so I've had a lot of conversations with you over the month about the different things that you're doing and how you're updating some of your scripts. And so what is the epiphanies that you have found for yourself, like as a writer? Because you are looking at a breadth of work that spans decades. And so now that you've touched into some of these older, text of yours and, things that you wanted to get produced forever that just got produced for the first time, like what are the epiphanies about your work that you've written in the past that will kind of inform how you write in the future?
The first one was that I realized that I have always believed in me. I believed in this voice. And that's why those plays exist. And I hope that as an educator, as a friend, as a colleague, that I can spark that in others. In terms of my own work, I really had a very enlightening moment about my relationship to form. How the practice of writing and rewriting has really helped me find ways to shape plays that support them thematically, and that my willingness to experiment with form has really paid off. It was not something I would have said about myself when I first started, but it's definitely something that has grown through my work. And I keep seeing all these women in my plays, smart women, and all these, many, not all, but many, many female protagonists, many people of color, people that have been underrepresented. And, people had come to me and said, if you just didn't write those plays with all those Latinx characters, we'd do your work more or whatever. And I'm so glad that I just stuck to my voice. Right. And, and also just to see one's themes, the themes of healing, the level of vulnerability that I try to find in myself to write, and the way that pays off in a play and in production and with a team. But it has been very raw for me. Many times, like last night, I was crying when I called in to Notre Dame when they did Curanderas, a play I wrote quite a long time ago. And I just tell you, there's something about, you have to be raw to be a writer and to be a truthful writer. And I force myself to tell the truth, and as much as it hurts.
Most certainly. And so for our scholars, we're starting to wrap it up. We're getting close to the end of this part of the segment. I wanted to ask with some of the newer work. So, Halstead really is the most newest work, literally, that Elaine worked so tirelessly on with Sean, who was the director of that. And I believe that y'all got a chance to see Halstead. If you could talk about what did you think about that piece of work and how it relates in comparison to some of the older titles that you are aware of with Elaine?
I loved Halstead. I know that Elaine's been writing it, right? But I was looking forward to it. I actually watched it 3 times. I loved it because I was, thinking that Elaine has this really wonderful way of just overlapping space and time in her playwriting. And this even created multiple spaces and times of the human body, which just blew my mind in terms of the way that she imagined the characters to represent what a holistic person would be, and what that would mean to have a person divided because of a stroke. So I think that the production really just followed along those threads so nicely. Sean, congratulations. You and the cast did a fabulous job of just presenting that story. And like I said, when I watched it the first time, I thought, okay, I have to do it again. I have to do it again. The third time, I only listened to it the third time. And to just follow the language that way, because I was really wanting to focus on Elaine's words, I compare it to the other plays that she works on, which have such a political tone in her Border trilogy and in the war plays. But this one has such a human tone that really talks about the fracture of maybe a broken life promise, right? That line, why did you invent strokes, right? I mean, oh my gosh, I was just so moved by it, Elaine, and I thought it was one of your more beautiful works that I've ever had the chance to hear.
And I would echo everything that Jimmy said, and I would just add to it that it's an incredibly brave and courageous and vulnerable work of art. I had the privilege of being in Chicago around the time of those events, and have known Elaine through the process, and to see her with her playwriting at this point in her journey reflect back and create this beautiful piece of art that gives people hope in the face of unimaginable challenges. And I just want to commend Elaine for your incredible bravery in writing this piece, and thank you, Sean, and the entire ATC team for bringing it to us, because I think it's a play that we need to see again and again, and it's really was such a highlight for me.
And I'll just add that I was surprised at the humor and the kind of ability for the characters to cope in such a difficult situation, and at the same time there was all this intense, powerful love that was throbbing through the script, and yet an ability to laugh and to be kind and gentle in a situation that would lead, I think, most people to bitterness and anger. And I didn't get bitterness and anger from this play, and it obviously could have lent itself to that. What I got was this hope, and of course Elaine's beautiful language and wonderful imagery. But I was really surprised by the humor, and Elaine always kind of is somewhat self-deprecating about comedy and humor, and she's really quite good at it. And I found myself laughing out loud. And I didn't think that of all her plays, this is the one that I would find myself laughing, but it was about life and living and not about the pain. And I thought that was so powerful with Halstead, and just so proud of you, Elaine, for going there. You just amazed me. I for those of us who've known Elaine for this whole time and watch her create this career carrying a really tremendous burden, I was dazzled by it. So kudos.
So we are wrapping up this amazing section of our show. Usually we ask our guests to leave us with a word that they're inspired by that becomes the name of the episode. So do you have a word that could describe what you're feeling right now, or Elaine, or the festival, or anything that we've talked about?
I'll say gratitude.
I'll say abundance.
Say heartfelt.
Those are three beautiful words that most certainly sum up Elaine. Thank you so much for being here, for being guest on Hang in Focus. You are welcome to come hang out with us at any time. Your presence in this festival has been wonderful to have, not only friends of Elaine's, but also scholars that understand her work and understand playwriting at its heart, and being able to give your expertise. You've really allowed us to take this festival to the next level. So thank you for your involvement. We are greatly appreciative.
Thank you all so much.
Okay. Have a good day. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
Now we're going to continue this love fest, and we have So we have, well, number one, everyone should know. So Elaine Romero has been our playwright in residence for over 20 plus years. And that also means that she has been primarily in charge of the National Latinx Playwright Award. Single-handedly, she has made sure that that award has been kept alive, which has given a voice to so many different playwrights throughout the United States. And we have actually invited some of those winners back on to see like how winning the National Latinx Playwright Award has influenced their work. And so we're just going to bring them on today. So we're going to have Elaine come back on and join us, as well as our NLPA winners that are gracing us with their presence today. Hello, we have Luis Alfaro of the house, Eliana Pipes, and Carlos Murillo. Thank you. So wonderful to have you all today.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, beloved winners.
I know this is such an amazing group of playwrights to suddenly bust into your show at a given.
Tell me about it.
Introduce everybody.
Yes.
Everybody in this room.
So, Luis, if you could start us off, just give a little bit of a brief introduction of who you are and what was the show that you submitted for the NLPA and what you won and all that good stuff.
Oh my God, it was so long ago. Like I was literally, when you said that right now, I thought, oh, I won this award. I remember it very clearly. But I was like, I have to just go back in my head. I think it was for sure for Straight as a Line. I'm almost positive. Yeah.
It was for Straight as a Line.
Yeah. And it was a play that was very near and dear to me. I wrote it. Elaine and I are connected through Marie Irene Fornez. And it was a play I wrote in the Fornez workshop. It was a commission to write a play about being an immigrant. And, I'm Mexican-American, I'm Chicano. But the time that I most felt like an immigrant was when I was living in England, when I was in London. So I wrote a British comedy that eventually got produced first by an Asian company. And then it got produced by a black British company, and then by a black theater company. So it took a long time for the Latinos to catch up to my British comedy. And it had a very lovely, interesting journey off Broadway, where it was, everybody loved it, and then everybody hated it. It got terrible reviews, and then it got one good review in the New York Times, and that's all you needed, right? So we know that experience. But you know where it really did well? At the National Theater of Romania, where it ran for 2.5 years.
Amazing.
Like, who knew, right? Like, what? So obviously I'm Luis Alfaro, and I'm a playwright. And
a winner, right?
Yeah, and I've had a long history not only with Elaine, but with Arizona Theater Company, with the city of Tucson, and also just Arizona in itself has been a long, fruitful, really extraordinary relationship. I spent a season at the Poetry House. I'll never forget that, on campus. And I spent a beautiful season living in that trailer park behind the theater. Is that still there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Like right behind the theater?
Ramona Court. He's talking about Ramona Court.
Oh.
Which is next to Midtown Liquors.
Yeah, I think it's
I loved it. It was a lot of seedy, interesting characters, and it was just one of the most extraordinary times of my life. So I'm most grateful for all of the journey into the desert. We don't think of the American Southwest as one of those places where there's so much creativity and it's such fertile land. But for me, it's been an extraordinary time of creativity, of degenerative art there, and of meeting the community. That's the most powerful part of being there, was how many people I met, right? And how many people had such an influence on my life, from artists to scholars to the regular everyday folk. So yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here. I mean, this is kind of a last minute thing for me, but I'm so surprised. I'm looking at my hair and just hating it, but I'll get over it. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see everybody.
Oh, thank you for being able to make it, Luis. We were really excited when you confirmed. I was like, yes. And so let's go on over to Carlos.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Carlos Murillo. I'm a playwright, and I'm based in Chicago. I head the playwriting program at the theater school. of DePaul. And I just want to say, Elaine, congratulations. Long overdue, this recognition for your work. We all love you and are grateful to you. Anyway, and we miss you in Chicago, because Elaine, for her long years in Arizona, there was a little time that she was here in Chicago, and we were all blessed to have her as part of the community here. I actually won the award twice. The first time was way back when I was a baby playwright in 1996, I think it was, or 95, 96, sometime in the previous century. And it was a play called Never Whistle While You're Pissing. I don't know if I could say that on Facebook Live.
You can totally say that.
And it was that was a really real boost for me. It was a very early play. I was just starting out. I didn't do the sort of traditional MFA, thing. I kind of was self-taught a little bit. I got to study with Irene and actually wrote parts of that play in one of her workshops. And during the summer, New York Theater Workshop did a little workshop of it in their summer retreat, and Irene was there, and I got to meet her mother, and she became a sort of icon. So we're all kind of connected that way. And that play, it ended up having one production there used to be a theater in Seattle called the Group Theater. That was a great little venue, and it happened to be the play that closed that theater. That was a badge of honor in my early 20s. And then the second play that I won with was a play called Dark Player Stories for Boys, which was, I think, in like 2006 or 2007. I can't remember, sometime in the mid-aughts. Wow. And then that play, that's actually how I guess I met Sean, because you were down at ATL at the time, and they produced it at the Humana Festival in 2007. And so for me, like the recognition was really huge early on, and very much a validation. Latino playwrights at the time were not, there weren't a whole lot of venues and spaces for us to have our work recognized. So it was a huge, huge boost. And I'll just say that, one of the things that I really love about Elaine is that, it's just amazing. Just hearing, I was listening into the earlier segment, and 90 plays, this incredibly prolific, inventive playwright who, but is also so giving to the community and the community of playwrights. How she has time to do that is who the hell knows. But I just think it's amazing that not only does she is so focused and devoted to her work, but she's also been such a champion of other writers, which is a real gift. And and in many ways, a lesson to me, it's a kind of pay it forward. That. We want to do our work and have our work produced and seen and all that, but I think there's so much. I think Luis is another great example of that. Of that so much of being in this field and having longevity in this field has to do with what you give back to your community and the next generation of playwrights. And I think Elaine is a model of that.
It's wonderful, thank you. And I thought it was also interesting that you won the award 10 years apart. That is like, oh my gosh, just incredible. And thank you for submitting again. And then last and certainly not least, we have Eliana. We are so grateful to you because Eliana is our most recent NLPA winner. So woohoo! She joins the ranks. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how Dreamhouse has continued to win some other awards, and since you've won last August.
Yeah, of course. My name is Eliana Pipes. I'm also a playwright, and as Chanel just mentioned, I'm sort of the more recent guard. It's certainly an honor to be on this Zoom with all of you fancy people. This is very exciting. My play is called Dreamhouse. It's about two sisters selling their home in a gentrifying neighborhood on an HGTV-style reality TV show with a lot of glitz and glamour. And winning this award has been so meaningful to me, both personally and sort of in the way that the play has moved through the world. It's a really meaningful credit. And it's certainly been helpful to have, especially in this year. I'm sort of newer to meeting Elaine. I wish I had 10 years of stories to tell, and it's nice to think that in 10 years I will have 10 years of stories to tell.
Right.
But really, it has been wonderful just getting to know you, and even in sort of other Zoom rooms that we've bumped into each other in, Elaine has always emerged as a leader and an outspoken voice, especially for political theater. I remember that was a moment that came up, and I really appreciated the way that you sort of stepped forward to speak about, the value of political theater. It's wonderful that, the sort of consistency of your voice comes through in any space, Zoom or in person.
was a scary moment, and I appreciate you saying that.
No, I almost sent you a little DM. I really did appreciate it when you said that.
So let me ask, just for our people that are watching, what does this award mean to the field, right? Like,
Yes.
and, for funders that, want to be a part of it, like Elaine has kept it going, fought for it, in budget after budget, right? And to keep anything going for a long period of time at a theater is admirable, right? But what does it mean for you all that are leaders in our field? What does it mean that this continues and that people win it each year?
Well, I think it's important just to recognize that there aren't a ton of awards for Latino or Latinx people in the community. And I'll say that because it has the longevity that it has, it really means a lot because of the prestige of the award, right? And I would say that, there's something very powerful in the way our industry works. And, I hope this doesn't sound like I'm bitter in any way, but you get one and then you start to be qualified to get more. And I think that, the opening of that door is very, very true. I was thinking about this the other day because there's a writer I love very much who won this award, Benjamin Benet. And we were having a conversation at a regional theater, and I was pitching his play, because that's one of the things I do. I go to theaters and say, you should do this play, right? And they were like, well, and I was like, and it won this award, right? And then they're like, oh. And a lot of times it's just that somebody vetted the author and the play and the work, that somebody gave it a mark of excellence, right? And I think that's really, really important not to forget. For those of us who got it early in our careers, it was really important. I talk about this a lot. I got a MacArthur and I gave all the money away. I didn't need the money. Well, now I regret it, but I really didn't need the money. What I needed was I needed the access. And that was one of the things that this award gave me, right? It opened a lot of doors. And that was really how I got to I took that play, that was my business card play, right? And once I got that award, I went to other regional theaters and shook a lot of hands with that play. And I think we can't forget that, the power of what it does into an industry that doesn't always see us, right? And so to get that validation is important,
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. But my favorite part of it actually is very personal. It was like when I went to go visit my mother on Long Island, God rest her soul, and she had the press release on the refrigerator, which was such a validation when I was, 24 years old or 23 years old or however old I was when I wrote that play. So there's that. But also just, look at the list of writers who've won the award. It speaks for itself. It really is.
Right.
It really is so many names that have changed the field and have really, uplifted other voices. And it's just really incredible, that it got a lot of folks early career and did the same thing that Luis talked about, that it created that validation, that sense of, the writing is worthwhile, and that certainly opens doors.
And Elaine, if you don't mind just speaking to it for a moment, about the award, right? The selection process, what you go through, how it's grown. Because I just joined the selection committee with Elaine, and no joke, it was so beautiful because it was experienced playwrights and newer playwrights. It was about the work and what shows stuck out. It wasn't a matter of who was the stronger writer or, what the potential was. And I love that Elaine has that even playing field for everyone. So Elaine, can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, first, I don't think I've ever said how proud I was the day that Carlos's play was selected for the Humana. I felt as if I had been selected. I was so proud of him. And I know when the play Straight as a Line went on, I felt such pride. And then he went to MacArthur. And then I was like, oh my God, our winners are so great. And I just felt such joy that we helped push those careers along, even just a little bit, even a micro inch. And so that's part of it. And yes, we've committed to reading and rereading, and Anthony Diaz, who interned with us the last couple of years, he was the first person to read Eliana's play and say, hey, this is really special, and things like that, So I really, really appreciate our process. We've always been committed to having a BIPOC committee, which, is something that we feel really strongly about. And winners judges who understand the culture, who might work in both languages and be able to understand to work in both languages. And that has been important to us as well. And, you know, I want to apologize for all the years that we asked for paper submissions. I just going to apologize publicly for that. And now we're taking electronic submissions. So you got your way, everybody. You're good. I was just a little old school with me in my chair, but that's cool. I can adjust and adapt. So anyway, but it's really beautiful that we, you know, we just read everything and we reread it. You know, by the time we're done with the plays, they have coffee stains, they're dog-eared, because we've kind of loved them up already. And I always want to give away like a lot more awards. And if there's a donor out there that wants to be part of this, we would love to give a bigger award. You know, anything, if your heart is being sparked by this conversation, we are happy to spark with your heart, because I would love that. You know, whatever we can do for Latinx writers and to push the field forward. And, you know, almost every play that has won has been produced somewhere. This is something that doesn't happen in the American theater. There are very few that haven't been produced. In fact, only like a couple. And so I'm really proud of that. And so often I watched somebody win the award and then be able to have that credit and go to somebody and say, hey, this just won that. And maybe that theater was on a fence and then it just pushed them over. I was so proud when Christopher Diaz's The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deedy was a finalist for a Pulitzer Prize, and, you know, had first won our contest. And I think stories like that, you know, careers that, you know, maybe they were looking at Latinx stuff and suddenly they won. You know, Karen Zacarias, she won for a play called Mariela in the Desert that was then picked up by the Denver Center. I've just watched it happen. It's like magic. And I feel like, you know, just to see that magic happen for our community and writers, and to know that we ascend together as Latinx writers are, you know, like Louise said, we're always asked to give the opinion of each other. We're always asked, like, well, what do you think of this writer? Should I do this play? And I've always made this commitment to be the one that helps close the deal for another Latinx writer. And I know that other people do that for me. So I just feel like that's our commitment as a community. That's who we are as a community. And I'm really proud to be part of this community. I wouldn't want to be anybody different.
Thank you so much. Well, as our segment is nearing a close, I would love to hear, there's going to be some good words coming out of this group, I can already tell. But we ask for one word that you kind of is resonating within your spirit right now. And it could be a word about what's happening today in the world. It could be a word that represents Elaine's work or how you feel about Elaine's work. It could be a word, how you felt when you won the NLPA award. So we would like you to give us one word to leave our audience with today.
I'll say 2 words: legacy, lineage.
And why?
Just because I was thinking, you know, hearing Elaine talk about it and thinking about if you wanted to understand the sort of late 20th century, 21st century history of Latinx theater, you just have to read the plays that are on that list. You know, and you'll get it, and you'll see the connections, and you'll see, yes, you know, the aesthetic variety. You'll see so many different things, and it's the award itself is kind of a document of our history.
Wonderful, Luis.
I was looking at Ileana because you know, she's the newest one. I don't want to step over the newest one. But I just wanted to say, maybe after seeing Halstead, that is something that really sort of imprinted on me was the notion of enduring, right? That we can do this for the rest of our lives. That's what we were taught by our mentor, is that there was a lot of great artists before us, and there will be many great artists after us. We are here to tell the story of today. And in a way, in 90 plays, isn't that what Elaine has done, right? Enduring. You can endure. You can do it.
Thank you. And Eliana, who we will be seeing later on for a workshop of your show as a part of winning the NLPA. Please leave us with your word.
Sure, it feels so blasé compared to those 2 beautiful words, but I just can't stop thinking about leader and leadership. Being at the helm of this award for 20 years is such a feat. And, you know, the way that you were a leader in every sort of room that I've ever encountered you in. Leader is all I can think.
It's a wonderful word.
Thank you.
And it's true, right? I mean, like, she's fought for this award to keep it going year after year. And then we're all the beneficiary of that. So thank you, Elaine. Well, thank you all so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being so wonderful and sharing this time with us. It's been great to have you all.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you.
Oh, Elaine, any last words to share with us about?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm just in so much awe, to see my colleagues. And, it's funny because I was thinking of words and I had thought of lineage. And of course it came out of Carlos's mouth. And I thought that was just so perfect. The tapestry of Latinx playwrights and how we reflect on each other and how our lives are so interdependent and the symbiotic relationships that we have. I'm just so grateful for my colleagues. I think one of the ways we don't quit is that we know each other and we support each other. We have the Latinx Theater Commons and we have spaces in which we meet. And if there's a festival of Latinx writers, we show up for each other, even if our work is not in it. And I think that kind of consistency and commitment to each other has really made it a better experience for all of us to be playwrights. I'm sure that people look at us as a group and say, oh, we're jealous. We wish we had that community of writers. And that's what we have. And we're super grateful. And I'm so glad to be part of it. And I'm so proud of ATC. And I want to acknowledge David Ira Goldstein for helping found, in the beginnings of the award to really commit to it and continue to hold it up so we could have this. He always believed in it. He always believed that it was something that would put Latinx theater on the map, and it absolutely has done that. So I'm super proud of that contribution the theater has made historically to this award.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, what's your word, Elaine? Because you haven't given us.
Oh, the one that Carlos stole from me already? You know what? My second word, I was actually thinking of the ancients, like our stories come from our ancestors. And how the ancients, we're storytellers because we were born of storytellers and they were born of storytellers. So it's the ancients. Wow. Thank you.
Well, and even though we're wrapping up, we do want to encourage everybody, if you go to arizonatheater.org, you can find the calendar. There are multiple readings still happening.
Yes.
If you were watching today and you thought, oh my God, this sounds amazing, how did I miss it all? You have not.
You have
There
not.
are still multiple, you can see the calendar, you can see things that are going through this weekend, you can see stuff that hasn't even started yet. There are still a lot that happens in the next 5 days that you can continue to understand why all of these people rave about Elaine to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Elaine, for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all for the RomeroFest. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Chanel.
Of course. It's our honor, truly. All right. What an episode. My heart is full at the end of
It's a love fest. Like, that's what we said. My face is hurting from smiling so much. So this is great.
So we're going to toss it to our call board now so that people can know what's happening. Next week, we have a very exciting guest to be able to join us. We have Palin Chow, who used to be the chief creative officer at DreamWorks Shanghai. Then she was the same at Pearl Studios, and now she is the producer at Netflix Animation.
That's
when your
amazing.
title gets shorter as you move from place to place, that's how you know that you've gotten more important. So we're really excited to have such a high-profile guest with us on next week on the show. All right. Anything else we need to cover before we head out?
Make sure you watch Ponzi. You have just a couple more chances to watch it. And again, anything you want to find out about the Romero Festival can be accessed on our website /RomeroFest. So looking forward to seeing you all at our future offerings.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
This is your call board for March 26th through April 2nd, 2021. Hi, I'm Will Rogers, Community Engagement Manager for Arizona Theater Company, and thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you caught today's show where Sean and Chanel sat down with participants of RomeroFest to reflect back on the goings-on of this amazing month. Now let's see what's happening on future episodes of Hang in Focus. On April 2nd, producer Palin Chow will join Sean at the table. And on April 9th, Lauren Gunderson and Danny Erdberg will join us to discuss their work on The Heath, our next digital offering. And on April 16th, stay tuned to find out who will be joining us. We have some exciting things in the works, and you don't want to miss that. But in the meantime, there is still time to catch many of the offerings of RomeroFest. So let's look at that calendar for this upcoming week. If you haven't caught ATC's digital reading of Ponzi, you still can do so through Sunday at 5 p.m. And this week we have offerings from Tucson's Scoundrel and Scamp Theater, Phoenix's The Bridge Initiative, Seven Devils New Play Foundry, as well as work by Artist Repertory Theater. So there's still lots to catch in RomeroFest and lots to talk about afterwards. All right, now we're gonna head on over to the Giving Corner to see what development has for us today. Paula, take it away.
Hello and happy Friday, everyone. This is Paula Taylor, the Chief Development Officer for Arizona Theater Company. What a week it's been. We've been pretty busy in development, and we want to take a moment to thank Lewis and Roca's Tucson office for years of support to Arizona Theater Company. You know, Lewis and Roca have been in the old Pueblo, that's what those of us from Tucson call it, for decades, and they have been one of the leading business law firms in Southern Arizona. They've provided counsel to companies and individuals across a variety of industries, including real estate, healthcare, aerospace, and defense. But just as important as what an incredible law firm Lewis and Roca is, and especially Lewis and Roca in Tucson, one of the most wonderful things about them is that they recognize how important it is to be a leader in the community, and they actively engage their lawyers and their staff to be community leaders and be of service by engaging with nonprofits and organizations doing pro bono work that enriches the lives of people in Tucson. As a theater company that's been around for 54 years, it's because of people like Lewis and Roca and Lou Shore in particular, who have helped us sustain and continue to perform incredible live theater. So a big thanks to Lewis and Roca of Tucson and to Lou Shore and to so many of you out there who continue to support Arizona Theater Company. Have a wonderful weekend, enjoy the weather, and I'll see you next week.
And as you may know, March is Women's History Month. And all month long, we have been highlighting some of the amazing women who work right here on the ATC staff. So it's our last one for the month. Let's get going. This week, we'd like to spotlight Juliet Martin and Cat Trees. Juliet Martin, our Director of Patron Services, comes to us having previously worked at Act One, making theater accessible for students across Arizona. She's also worked at a myriad of other prestigious Arizona institutions like the Hurd Museum, American Red Cross, Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust, and the Arizona School Board Association. And in a short amount of time, she's already proven to be an invaluable member of our team. We're glad to have you, Juliet. And Cat Trees, our company manager. Before coming to work at Arizona Theater Company, Cat has worked at some of the most formidable regional theaters in the country, including Chicago's Steppenwolf Theater and Milwaukee Repertory Theater. But we're certainly happy she made the much warmer trek across country to be with us in Arizona. Well, that is all we have time for today. But if you did like what you saw or heard, please share it with a friend. You can subscribe to us, you can like our page, you can ring the bell, you can do all those things you know that you can do to follow us and to make sure that we get to keep having amazing conversations right here every Friday at 4 o'clock. That's all we have time for. Have a great weekend.